we'll move on to item 4, approve the minutes of February 1st, 2023. Everybody got a copy of the minutes? Any additions or corrections? Very good, Ruth.
Yes.
Really good job.
Thanks, Ruth.
Any corrections or additions?
I move to accept.
Okay, it's been moved to accept the minutes. Is there a second? Second, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, old business, discussion of library, did I miss anything? Discussion of library recreation culture tax proposal, a continuing item. Jeff?
Yep. So I believe Ronnie on Friday sent an email to all of the board showing you the survey. You have the opportunity to complete that survey as well. The survey will close on March 8th. So if you haven't done that, or your friends, please, I encourage everybody to do that. It is one portion of the survey. I think when we met last month, we talked about that the general public would not have the opportunity to fill out the survey. And the city is doing the survey in multiple ways, where we get general public feedback, as well as there is a statistically valid survey that will go out that will also represent, if we did go to the ballot, what the results would be. So that's my update for this month. The results are expected to be back towards the end of March. And when we meet that first week in April, I should be able to present you those results and what the next steps are.
Jane?
Jeff, I did the survey, and a couple of things came up for me, and I don't know if this is helpful or not, but in doing the survey, I thought a couple of things. Are these going to be increases on food and property tax indefinitely? Or is like a bond where there's limits to it? And the other piece of feedback was I felt a little bit overwhelmed by all of the things listed together. And it had a negative effect on me, and I'm a supporter of this stuff, but I got a little bit overwhelmed with this much on this one, this much on this one, this much on this one. And then at the end, and if we do it all,
Right, yeah.
it felt overwhelming.
Right.
And I'm just a regular citizen, so.
And could I agree with you on
Yeah.
that? And I'm excuse me, my concern is that it would intimidate people whose opinion we really want. In other words, regular guys. Good
I did the
information.
survey. I didn't feel that way, for what it's worth. I thought it was, it gave me a real good idea. I thought they really, I loved the part where they broke down how much it's gonna cost. And I thought it was a good survey.
I felt okay with it also, but it's because, we've been talking about it a lot right here, and that's why it might have been okay for somebody else. I'm not sure how that would have went. But one question I have, and I think I see that was in Spanish also, right?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, I thought I saw that. I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Yeah.
I thought it was good.
Yeah,
And was there something on there that indicated what kind of an increase it would be, if I recall, it's been a while since I read it, that it was gonna be so much per $100,000 on a home or something like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
It did say that. How
Yes,
much
it
was
did.
that?
I think,
It used a $500,000
$500,000.
home,
yeah,
and it gave a dollar amount of what the increase
Yeah, that's
was.
what I was
And
wondering if anybody remembered
I
that.
thought it was
no,
pretty-
I don't offer.
That's all right, I got it, I can
I
look
thought it was
it up.
good to have that information.
And Janine, back to your question. So, based on what I know today, the property tax would sunset at the end of when the projects were paid off.
Okay.
The sales tax would continue because that's going to pay for the ongoing operation of these new things.
It would be helpful in one of the surveys to state that.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of shared Janine's, I'm sorry, did I interrupt you?
Well, I was just thinking also that I don't honestly know what percentage of our community, what percentage own their own homes, what percentage rent. And that kind of would be helpful too. Like, do 70% of the people that live in Longmont own homes and therefore would be affected by the property tax? Things like that came up.
Well, you know, I added up, actually I didn't add up very well, but I did add up the dollar amounts on the taxes, and I don't remember what it was, but it got to be, on all of them together, it got to be a few bucks, you know.
Yeah, it's like
a monthly property tax.
255 million if it all passed.
Yeah.
How much?
255
Renters
million.
really pay for it too, because they're
And I thought that,
indirectly.
maybe, I share your concern. I was a little reluctant to say yes, that I'd vote for them. I did, because I thought it's the right thing to do. But I didn't think that I am gonna feel it in the pocket, and so I just wondered about that.
And I think part of the reason of the survey is to get a feel of where those that fill out the survey feel about the broad numbers of programs. Based on that information, and Marcia, please jump in here, council will probably use this information to determine, does it all go on the ballot? Do we cut it down, or how to move forward? So nothing says today that full $255 million set of questions would go. That's yet to be determined.
Yes, and it not just whether it all goes on or not, but we will be debating how many ballot questions to divide it up into. So it could be that each amenity is a separate issue, or it could be that they are grouped, like all of the parks and recreation stuff is on one, and all of the cultural stuff is on another. The council has, or the council and the city have already done two things, one of which did not make it to the ballot, because last night we moved to allocate some oil revenue money out of the general fund to partially fund the planned work on the museum that would otherwise be on this bond issue. So you'll get about a 10% discount for that item going forward. The other thing to notice is that there is this deal which the economic development partners have just endorsed last night to build the Center for Arts and Entertainment, but there is a private partnership that is going to raise the first $35 million to pay for it, and until they make that money over to the city, the taxes don't begin. So that tax would begin not now, but probably 3 to 5 years from now. It all goes away if they fail to raise the money. So that one is half price essentially to the public from what the amenity costs, and it also brings money into the city, which the others don't.
Any of the private donors committed at this point?
There is not the irrevocable pledge is being drafted by their lawyers, I understand. So nobody has. There are people verbally who have stepped up and said, I will give $2 million, I will give this $5,000 a year toward this until it's met. So yeah, there are some people who have stepped up. And again, the board of directors of the downtown, I'm not the DDA, the LEDP have endorsed it, and the estimate is that the primary employers will probably, who really want this because it helps them recruit, that they're probably good for 20 million of it. That's the hope. So, that's what I know. I don't know whether it's possible to change any of, the location of some of the recreation stuff or not.
Has to be determined.
There's been no discussion of it except that, we have some strong indications that our kids, especially on the north side, are in trouble, and that's also has the fewest public amenities for young people. And so maybe at the council retreat, which will be before the council refers anything to the ballot, some changes might be made.
Okay. I want to go on record as saying that I will donate $48.16.
Okay,
My portion.
how'd you come up with that number?
I just pulled it out of the air.
And I'll raise you a quarter.
What's that?
I'll raise you a quarter.
If you'd like to make that monthly.
I did notice on the survey, I took it also, and I noticed one of the first questions was ranking all of the agencies in terms of overall importance, and senior citizens was on that list. And I was just wondering, I thought it was good, but what use is the council, or are you going to make of that? Is that?
I think it got a feel of where people are currently participating or using facilities was the driver for that.
Okay. All right.
But the question wasn't asked that way.
I'm sorry,
The question wasn't asked that way.
as which ones you use?
Use versus.
Let me,
What is most important?
Yeah, most
that's
important.
pretty-
Yeah.
Quite different.
Yeah,
So
relative
I don't
importance,
know.
so-
again, to get the feel of what is important, then
Okay.
So if that winds up in mid-range, just to give you an example, that would help the senior center as far as possible funding, is that right? Or resources of some kind, or
Well,
just?
not necessarily. I think it gives council good feedback of how important
Just where
the
it
senior
stands in the
center
community.
is. But again, the rec center includes would include the programming space for seniors. Again, not a full center, but additional programming space.
And I also like the way they had you, how did they do it? They had you rank the various ones,
The project.
Yes, by project, and I thought that was really useful.
Yeah.
That's real professional, I thought, even though it's a monkey survey.
Well, yeah,
Yes.
I'm sorry. I was
Randy?
acting like I still had the
Randy?
floor.
I apologize, I think we may have emailed about this, but I don't remember if it landed. There's an idea that we could possibly mention this survey in our bi-weekly email that comes out of the senior center. Is that something that,
You can do that, but just remember, it closes next week.
it closes next
At
week?
8.
Okay.
That would have been nice.
Yeah. All right, any other discussion on that?
Well, I do want to say, there's no rules that say you can't send out an email
Off schedule.
before the cycle off schedule.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, once we hit August and it's on the ballot, you and I have to play by a whole different set of rules.
Right, but for right now, you could, go back to your office and swamp up a letter with that link in it. And there you go. There's, no reason you can't do that. In fact, it's encouraged.
So David, maybe a conversation with David.
All right, we covered that.
Before you go on to the next thing, David, I just want to apologize in advance. I'm waiting for a call from Harold Dominguez. sat by the door, I will zoom out, but that's why I'm not being rude and taking personal calls on your
Oh,
time.
okay. Class registration. I guess that would be you, Ronnie.
Class registration.
What,
I'm sorry, yeah.
no, we're on the
Yeah,
survey.
on
Business.
5B.
That was
Sounds
last
right.
week.
I got it, see it on here.
The wrong agenda.
Here.
Do you have a set there?
No, you're right. It's,
Yes,
senior
fingers
services
scroll down.
finalized customer survey questions.
Oh, so
No.
Is that the agenda?
Is that what you said, or I thought we
This
were
is
talking about,
registration.
yeah.
Oh.
That was, Rec Track was, yeah, last month.
That's not at all the same, is it?
Well, and you scared us too, because we weren't ready for that.
Yeah, last night I very carefully sketched out some notes to myself to remember.
There you go. 1.1.
All right.
You're welcome.
Is this the agenda?
Yeah, this is my report.
Oh, okay, I'll take it.
So, it has a bunch of little things and just keep coming back to it. You're welcome.
So you're talking about the survey, right?
Yeah, so the survey results are in
Oh,
here.
okay.
So we're just coming back to.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So this is my written report. It says we're gonna keep coming back to this at different points. But if you go to the second page, number 3, so this is the collection of everybody's responses to identifying your top 3 questions for our customer service questionnaire that we want to implement here in our building. So you have a black and white copy. I'm sorry, I meant to print it in color, but I mean, so your area is grayed off, but those are the top 3 choices amongst everybody. At the end of the question, it shows how many people pretty much voted for that specific question. So number 2, 3, and 4 was everybody's votes. Question 2 had 4 votes. Question 3 had 5 votes. And question 4 had 4 votes. So what everybody landed on was we provided information on where to access our classes and resources. Are your needs being met here at the senior center? And does our staff help answer your questions and provide you the information you are seeking? So now that we have collected these, identified our top 3 questions, our next step is identifying how we want to roll this out. Do we want this to be in person? Do we want it to be an electronic survey? A mixture of both? So I'm going to open that up for discussion.
Okay, we'll deal with this before we go on with the rest of your report.
I'm sorry?
I say we'll deal with this before we go on with the rest of your report.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. I think you all remember the discussion. We talked about maybe someone coming in, each of us coming in once a month or something like that for a few hours and interviewing people. And for a period of time that we didn't really specify. That's one approach. What's your pleasure? What do you think we should do? These seem to be the most important issue as agreed to by our group here. So what do you think? Julie?
Is there a way to have this survey given to each one of the instructors of the classes that are performed? And maybe they could do something like that at the end of their class or hand it out to the folks that are there. It's just another idea. Because you have an undivided attention of people, so they grab it as they go out, and then maybe they can, return it to the front desk or something of such.
Administratively, is that possible? Can you do that?
So what I'm working on with our team is submitting something similar, but it's more specific to the to the class they took specifically.
Oh, I see.
And could we piggyback off of that? Absolutely and possibly. My only concern is, are they gonna confuse the two for,
Right.
are my question 3 specifically, it says, are your needs being met here at the senior center? You know, is that gonna be confused with, were my
Right,
needs met
yeah.
for this class I just completed, or this lecture I just completed?
Yeah.
You know, could we piggyback off of it? Absolutely. We just would need to be very clear of class survey
You could head
versus
it,
senior survey.
you could head it class
Mhm.
questions, overall senior center questions, or
Right.
whatever, so it isn't confusing.
And so we were in this work. In this work, I took a previous survey that they used to implement in the past, and it was, I think, 15 questions, and it felt overwhelming. And so I worked with everybody with you know, the recreation team to condense it. You know, to me, some of them overlapped, and we can combine. And so we landed on, I think it's 6. We condensed it to 6. And so with this approach, can we do this? Yes. You know, the whole purpose of us condensing was to minimize and not make it feel overwhelming or just another thing for our patrons, right? So, you know, I'm gonna open it up to everybody. You know, the question I have is, by adding 3 more additional questions, you know, is that still gonna feel like too
Yeah,
much?
do you hit that overwhelming
Right,
point?
right.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Do you hit that overwhelming point, going from 6 questions to 9 questions?
And one point would be that you would have to make sure that you don't get duplication, because I'm in a yoga class and I fill the whole thing out, and then I go to a lecture. Got to be sure that I don't fill the whole thing out again, so I only answer those questions once.
Right.
Otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
you'll get too many questions.
I'm kind of wondering, because I don't know about what the best would be. I'm wondering if we could take a week and try it. Have somebody sit at the table and ask people as they come in the door or as they're leaving if they would answer these 3 questions. And then we might, now if people didn't want to do that or we didn't get a good response from that, then we'd have to like put the questionnaire at the check-in desk so people could fill it out while they're waiting in line. But that would give us a little more information.
That could be like the next light people had a table and were very approachable.
Sheila, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Next Light had a table in the lobby for a number of days, weeks, I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
And we could have an advisory board
I see.
representative. It's doable.
So are we exploring more of an in-person,
Yes.
you know, in-person option versus
Mhm.
adding it, piggybacking on?
And I think the advantage of that, of including that, would be that people would, in addition to answering the questions, would talk some more and give us some more information that the survey wouldn't give us. You know, we could have a separate notebook to take down those comments. Or a computer there.
You know, these are such short questions that I even sit there with a piece of paper and jot down responses, so they wouldn't even have to pick up a pen. If they'd just be willing to give me that input, I'd write it in.
You know, Jeff, you mentioned something like, for qualitative purposes, it's probably better to have something like this and have just kind of a conversation, so to speak. You know, you get probably get better information. So I was thinking about that. And I thought, you know, if I was going to do this, and I kind of like your suggestion, having somebody at the door. Anyway, if I was going to talk to someone, I think I would use these as a stimulus, so to speak, you know, to get people talking, and then just kind of go where the conversation goes. But I'd make sure I cover those 3 points, but then add on to it for more of the qualitative kind of stuff that you're talking about. I don't know if the rest of you would approach it that way, but I think that's what I'd do.
Well, most of them are yes, no.
Yeah,
In
that's it.
reality, they are.
Right, right. Get your old counseling skills out. You know.
If you add a general, like, fourth question of, is there anything else you'd like to share?
Yeah, exactly, yeah, something like that.
Then people who want to talk more can.
People who
Yes.
don't.
I just wonder how many people you're gonna hit in the lobby. I think if you're gonna ask these questions, it should go out in a newsletter. I mean, if people are on the newsletter list, just send it out in a newsletter. I mean, they can look at it or not, and they can respond. Can they respond in the newsletter? I mean, not a
So
newsletter, but in a
it's an
mailing.
email, so
survey
a link,
monkey.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
so there would be ways
I
to
would think
create
you
a-
get
an
so
active
much
link.
more information that way than waiting for people to walk into the lobby. And they're when they walk into the lobby, they're usually on a mission of going somewhere, and may not want to take time to fill out a survey or to chat. I don't know.
So you're not talking go, you're talking a survey.
Yeah,
Sure. Agreed. I agree.
I think you'd get more of a response that way.
Surveys are costly, I mean, just postage.
No,
No,
email.
Email.
Would be
Oh,
an
an email.
Survey Monkey.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm from the 1980s,
You're fine.
never got out of it.
So this proposal would be an active link in our newsletter that they can click on and answer these three questions. And if they want, as Brandy had mentioned, if there's an option for them to provide more in-depth responses, then it opens it up for them as well.
Marcia?
Thank you, David. I was thinking, should there be a discussion about who you want to sample? Because maybe people who open the newsletter on their phone or computer are a different population than the people who just walk in. If you did both, you probably want to keep the results separate and compare them before you squish them all together. Just a comment.
Good point.
And you will also have people coming in the back door.
Oh, that's right.
Would you suggest then, based on what you just said, Marcia, first question is, are you 55 or older?
It's a good
Because
point,
that's
too.
who we serve here. And if you're not, then thank you for your time and,
Yeah, just like the Magellan survey did.
yeah.
I think maybe we can do both and gather information, because at least half of the people I see don't use their computer. And I still would love to have their input.
We could have a paper version of the survey. If y'all don't want to park in the lobby, we could always have a paper.
In a box.
Yeah.
Sheila, you were gonna say something.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, if you're like me, you know, if you say it or it's gone.
Exactly. I have to go.
I don't know how many days we've been talking about coming out. I'm the individual that prefers the person to person, and I do the, just sending things out, but again, that's why we're bored, we all feel different about it, and I just feel that we would get more on people coming in than we would on the survey, sending it out. My personal opinion.
Well, we have at least two approaches, email and face-to-face.
Yeah.
Julie?
Well, I propose that we send out a link in the Go, or even a separate email for just the survey, so that it doesn't get lost in the Go. And then we, choose some very specific time frames here at the senior center where, people wanna sit at a table, they can sit at a table, and they can engage and they can have a conversation with folks. Just making sure that they haven't, the people that they're speaking to, that they haven't already answered all of the questions in the survey, the electronic survey, and do that approach and figure out, what is the time frame during the day that we're gonna do it, and how long are we gonna do it for? Are we gonna do it for a month? Are we gonna do it for 3 months? I don't think anybody wants to sit at a table for, 2 to 3 hours a day for the next 3 months. So it needs to be realistic in what amount of time you personally want to sit at a table to engage the community that's coming in the door.
I think that's
Julie, you
an
said
excellent
link in the
idea.
Go, you mean the newsletter?
They're
There
talking
is
about the
no link
newsletter.
Oh,
in
the
Go.
newsletter.
Okay.
Yeah, newsletter or
That was the next
separately.
question, is how quick do you want this? information I have.
Yeah.
But do want the static, because if we waited for the go to put in the go, then that's gonna push everything.
Yeah, no, I was meaning in the newsletter.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, they've got a couple of different approaches. Should we try both of them? Is that kind of what everybody's saying?
Who's going
I
to
like
be manning the
We just-
survey?
Yeah, we'll do the survey.
Who's gonna be doing it?
Well, that's the next question.
The in-person, yeah.
Those that want the survey in person?
Yes,
Okay.
the answer to that is yes. I'm willing to sit a couple of hours at the end of my work here and just see if people are responsive or not. And if they're not, then we know that they're not responsive.
So, Randy and Jeff, you guys have been here the longest, and I just don't know that Ronnie is gonna know the answer to this question, but it would behoove us to have somebody in the lobby, sitting at a table at our busiest times, right?
And what
And-
time? I'm sorry.
Busiest times.
Busiest time.
Yeah, so I don't know what time frame, like
11 to 1.
11 to 1.
Because you catch people who are leaving morning classes, you catch people who are coming for lunch, and you catch people who are coming for afternoon classes.
Yeah,
Are
so
they
you've got,
different, are they different than the people that come early or come late?
There are some people who just come early in the morning for exercise, and it might be nice to have, if somebody is an early morning person, an early morning shift, like 8 to 10.
oh no.
Don't all speak at once.
I understand there's about 30 people right there alone, right? I understand there's about 30 people come in for the rec.
For the
The
exercise.
rather.
Yeah.
But if
Yeah,
you've got
good.
one
That'd be
person,
good
one
to do.
volunteer, and
I know
30
it.
people,
No,
you're
I
gonna hit
understand.
one or two people.
Yeah. So that's the
I
thing.
like the box idea and
Yeah.
announcing in class possibly that there is a survey sitting on the table in the lobby that we'd like you to fill out.
I think it could be 3 methods, really. In-person discussion, paper survey, email, digital survey.
Yeah,
Agreed.
with the email being distributed, or the paper being distributed in the classroom?
In the lobby.
Front desk
In the
or-
lobby.
Just available at all times in the lobby.
Yeah.
With some signage.
Well, maybe we should break this up into pieces here. Maybe we should just deal with the components of it first. Somebody make a motion, if you will, we'll have 3 parts to this survey. And we'll do that first.
I make a motion to have 3 parts to the survey.
Okay, second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
I think we need it in Spanish as well as English.
In Spanish, okay. Can you amend your motion to include
I amend
Spanish?
my motion to have 3 parts to the survey, including in Spanish.
Okay, so there's been a second, Sheila. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, now to the question of how long, how many people, who's gonna do it, who's gonna grab hold of it, all that.
Just a minute, when we're doing this, are we asking yes/no questions, or are we asking open-ended questions?
We're asking these 3
Open-ended.
specific questions.
And
With room for
This-
comments.
Yes, these 3 specific questions that we all were surveyed about and decided that these are the questions that we're gonna ask. And then if you're sitting at a table and if there's ongoing conversation, then you can take notes on that. Is that correct?
Yeah, everybody okay with that? Okay. A mandatory 3 questions, and then you can add to it as you wish.
Well, and if it's written,
Yes, write it
it's
down.
written to have a space under each question for additional comments.
Yes,
okay.
good. That okay with everybody? All right, now who's gonna do it, when, and how are we gonna organize that?
Well, that's a tough one because obviously I'd volunteer to do it, but I can't be here 5 days a week either. So I'm saying I can come in, but I don't know how, if we had, you said 11 to 1 is the busiest time here. Maybe come 11 to 1, a few times, and I'll be glad to help with that.
And different days of the week, because, there are different groups that come on different days of the week.
See, that makes,
So spreading people out.
that makes it tough.
Makes it tough to do it in person. because you can't do it in person just once. We need to have one person, 2 hours a day, 5 days a week
How many weeks, right?
for four, let's say we do it for a month, that's for, 4 weeks. That's a lot of
Yeah,
time
that's a
for
lot.
everybody, right?
It doesn't have to all be the same person, though.
No, it doesn't, but if you take, there's 7 of us, right? So if you take, that's one of us being there almost every week for the next 4 weeks.
I think that's doable.
It's
I know-
not doable in my
I
world.
know your
I have
work
a
is
full-time
different.
employee.
Beth?
I can see this as an ongoing thing for the senior center, like a suggestion box, with the questions on the box, with, people, I know at another facility that I go to, which isn't a city facility, they always have a box and they ask for input and suggestions and all the time. Do we have that here? In the lobby?
No.
No, we're not a suggestion.
I mean, and it's what are we doing well? What can we do better? That kind of thing, an ongoing kind of thing.
And how often does the administration of that building review
They take them out every week,
every week?
yeah. Just to keep on top, that's the
I think that's a
communication
great
mode.
idea.
I think people like having that opportunity,
Mhm.
Does the rec center do that?
yeah.
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 What was the reason, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, if we ask nicely, someone from Tinker Mill will probably build us a really nice, attractive suggestion box that could
The
listen.
woodworkers here at the senior center might do that as well. We have a
Oh.
woodworking group.
I think we already have one actually, because we used it at the open house in November.
Oh, even better, no delay.
And
I
how
mean,
many
just-
suggestions?
Sorry, Art.
Just some suggested, simple. What can we do better? What do we do well? That covers,
We've already decided those
Yeah.
questions, right?
yes, it can even be simpler,
What was it? Okay, go ahead. I don't know if anybody wants to respond to you.
Art, go ahead.
I was just wondering, I know we brought this up a while ago and I might have been writing, but what was the reason we don't want to give them to the individuals, like in a class, like in the recreation class, give them all one, and if they turn in, fine, if they don't? Or is it the paper we're concerned about?
It was because Sheila made a very good point, is that what if she goes to yoga in the morning and she goes to a lecture in the afternoon, and those 3 questions are on, so as Ron was saying, they're doing specific questions that relate to the class that they've gone to. And then we would piggyback onto that with our 3 questions. So if they went to the same thing in the same day, right? Or even if they went to another one on another day, you would get those 3 questions. One person would get that 3 questions 3 times that they could answer, right? And we only want them to answer our questions once.
Stand alone.
And if I were that person that had 2 classes, I would only answer them once.
Exactly.
But there's a lot of people that would,
Yeah.
a lot of people would just go through and answer the questions. Yeah.
Because you might have a
Yeah.
different opinion based on what happened at fitness versus the lecture.
Exactly.
Yeah, put you in a better mood.
Yeah.
So I think ours need to be standalone as well. I think the classes need to stand alone and ours need to stand alone.
Okay,
And I like
Card
the
that's
idea.
handed out at classes with those 3 questions too.
I think we're generally agreed on the whole approach here, on how we want to do it. It's just, I think, my preference would be to someone to grab hold of it and kind of take charge of it and run it for however long we want to do it, a month or 2, get 3, forever.
Forever.
Yeah, I really think it should be a limited period of time, and maybe you do it now in the spring, you check it again in the fall or something like that.
I
Once you-
guess, yeah, I kind of agree with that too. It can't go on forever.
And there could be comment cards available forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, let me ask this, I hate to dump on you, but is there a staff that can do this?
We could explore that option. I don't want to say no. I just know that we're, we have myself being new, we have the new staff to try to get their feet under them. And, we have our current staff who's been here, who's been juggling a lot, waiting for the new staff to be here.
Yeah.
And so,
I'm
I
sure.
don't want to say no, we can look at it if that's the direction we go. I just don't want to also say yes in this moment.
Uh-huh.
I'd have to really look
We
at
could
it.
ask our other volunteers.
Right, we look at volunteers.
Jess?
That would be a good job for volunteers.
So this might be a different approach. I guess, I think that Ronnie and I and Brandy can spend a little time and send you all out a proposal of timelines, a schedule of when we need people, that sort of thing. 'Cause right now, I think we have the general feel of what you all want. Let us come up with a process and present that back to you.
Next meeting? Yes, Marcia?
I was just gonna say, because I have for various reasons been acutely aware of staff time being oversubscribed, I obviously cannot man a table, but I have some digital skills and I would be perfectly willing to set you up a sign-up genius to schedule the tables and set you up a Survey Monkey to put in the newsletter, and that would get a couple, 3 hours of time off of anybody's table. So when you get the thing organized, call on me.
Thank you.
That's nice.
Thank you.
So I think that would be our best approach, is to give us some time. And then maybe we outline what we think the schedule is, and then maybe somebody or all of you could help us fill in the volunteer spots.
Yeah, we can do that. I think everybody's willing to spend some time on it.
Well,
Absolutely.
that's what Sign Up Genius is for,
Yes.
is it gets you the volunteer spots
Yeah.
fairly quickly.
Being a new board member, I've got a question about volunteers. Does the senior center have a pool of volunteers?
We do.
Who is the volunteer coordinator?
Char
So,
Sloan.
as of this moment, Char Sloan, and again, with our new staff coming in that we're looking to hire, that may shift, but as of this moment, Char Sloan.
To me, being an ex-volunteer director, you use your volunteers
Yeah.
for that. You know, the board is already volunteering, and you've got a whole pool of volunteers, and that would be just a wonderful place to use the volunteers. Are they overused?
Some of them.
Some.
Well, that's
Yeah.
good, that's a good suggestion to consider. Brandy, did you have something you were gonna say?
No, I was just answering Beth's question.
Oh,
She asked,
thank you, Brandon.
she asked if volunteers are overextended, and I said some of them, but not the majority.
Right,
Yeah.
but if you send you've got a mailing list of volunteers, right? So you send a mailing, here's a thing to volunteer for, click here,
Okay.
see what you get.
All right, so I don't think we need a motion for that, do we? Okay, so you guys okay with that then? And I suppose you'll be involved also. But, okay, all right, so you'll put it on the agenda next time?
Yeah.
Okay, as a follow-up, and then we'll go from there.
And it would be our hope that we get your blessing for that, and then we're ready to roll right after that
Okay.
meeting.
All right, everybody all right with that?
Yes.
All right. Let me get back to the current agenda. Let's say, annual report. I guess the rest of you did not get a copy of the last annual report.
So I just finished the annual report. We finally were able to get statistics out of our database, and I sent it to David for review and wanted to see if he had any major issues with it before we sent it to the entire board.
Actually, I do have some thoughts. You did a good job. By the way, we can use it as is, as far as I'm concerned, but I do have some thoughts. And I would like to have the thoughts of other people too. I thought, well, let me ask first, how has it been forwarded to the city council before in the past years?
You have to get on the schedule to come speak at city council, I believe, and present it.
Yes. Yep.
And we had talked about doing that in May, maybe for Older Americans Month.
And who does that?
Ronnie,
Get you on the agenda, yeah, Ronnie would do that.
But shouldn't I do that? I don't like to speak in front of the group, but
Well,
shouldn't I do that?
There's two different things there.
Okay,
Staff would take the lead in getting it on the council's agenda.
okay.
I would hope that one of you would do the presentation, because council doesn't wanna hear from staff, they wanna hear from you all.
Sure.
Good for you for bringing that up, David.
Yeah.
All right, so what I'm thinking is that, like I said, I don't particularly want to get in front of the city council, but I will.
And I guess staff could help start the conversation and kind of set the table if you all could hit the highlights. I wouldn't, one of the things, don't read it to council. They can read, so just hit the high points and maybe a little bit of detail on those high points.
That's kind of what I was thinking, except my thinking goes like this, that, remember I've talked at length a couple of times about how we interject ourselves in the whole process between now and when the budget is formed. And I feel the more we can interject ourselves, the better off we are as far as getting what we want, whatever it is, whatever it is. And so I'm thinking that it really should go, it should have your report is just fine. There might be a couple of places I might want you to enlarge it a little bit. Let me talk about that while I'm thinking of it, it'll be going. You mentioned in your report that depression seems to be on the uptick.
Mhm.
How serious is that? How big a deal is that?
I'm not-
Is it?
Or how much has it increased?
Yeah, how big?
Yeah, and I'm not sure how to answer that question.
I know you don't, because
We
you don't
can
have
certainly
numbers.
compare to last year. I think if we're gonna do that, we should compare all of the data from last year. Because depression was not the only area where we had an
No.
increase.
Okay. All right. So, and part of what I'm getting at obviously is that if it's increasing due to whatever reasons, that has implications for resources, Yes, ma'am.
One thing is if you have the capability of comparing observations or whatever data you have the last year to this year, that is just nirvana, manna for the council. That's exactly the kind of stuff we want to hear, and especially Dr. Waters, who will probably fault you if you don't have that. So please do that.
Well, let me ask, can you compare it to data like the National Association of Mentally Ill, NAMI, for example, or state, from your state division of mental health?
I don't think
Whatever they call that.
I don't think we can do a per capita kind of statement there, because NAMI, I don't know what sort of data NAMI pulls, but if they're looking at national incidence of depression, they're looking at the whole population. We're only looking at the population of the people who come to the senior center and request counseling. So I can't compare apples and oranges that way quite.
Well, I understand that, but I'm thinking we could make a statement like, in general, according to this source and this source, depression is, and whatever other issues might be increasing. And we see the same phenomenon here. And you can say that safely, it seems to me. It seems to me that's something you could say. Yes, Sheila.
I feel rather uncomfortable about just having an open discussion about a document that only you two have seen.
Yeah.
I would prefer to wait to discuss it when we've all had a chance to look at it.
A good point. Yeah, I agree.
And something I'll note is that we could do comparison data for anything in the report. We have last year's report and this year's report presenting the same information. It would be really helpful for people to weigh in on what particular things would you want that comparison on, because right now it's a 6-page document and it could become sort of unreadable if we do that comparison for everything. So maybe priorities?
I've got a suggestion. At the council meeting, we've all read news stories about how depression's on the upswing and negative behaviors are on the upswing. You could just start with an article from the New York Times or something that shows that, I think it all started at COVID, that you could present it that way. Like nationally, we know from news articles that depression is really on the rise. At the senior center, we have statistics that show that there's an increase in people we are seeing with depression or calls that we receive for depression over previous years, and that maybe this is exponential.
Same with housing.
Can you slice and dice it in a way that you could come up with some sort of factual, statistical base on
I mean,
trends?
I can certainly compare percentage this year to last year. And I'm gonna tell you, there's major skew there, because during the pandemic, when our building was closed, the majority of the folks who wanted counseling did not wanna do it on the phone or on Zoom. And so we, until May of what year did we reopen? 2021, we were closed. And so, of course, the numbers look pretty different comparing 2021 to 2022, because people came in the full year of 2022. People did not come in the full year of 2021. So I feel like we'd want to acknowledge that skew if we start looking at percentages.
That's okay, that's all right.
Yeah.
Brandon, you have 2019?
Yes.
Because a lot of the stuff that I have seen about, you know, where are we now, compares 19
Yeah.
to 22.
Well, I say yes, and it's in Michelle's files somewhere.
Okay.
So let me say yes, and is it accessible? I'm not sure. We can look. We can look at 2019.
Okay. All right. Before I forget what you mentioned, Sheila, Sheila had a really good idea she sent to me. Remember I said, I hope you all got the notice that I sent out a couple of weeks ago. Said if you had any items for the agenda to let me know. Did you all get that? Okay, I didn't get anything, but that's okay. Sheila said, why don't you ask also that you give a little synopsis of what it is you'd like to add so people know what you're talking about? I thought that was really a good idea. So I'm going to ask again before we have our next meeting. We had a pre-meeting. I'm going to ask you if there's any items you want to add to the agenda, and just put a little sentence or two as to what it is, so people know. Is that kind of what you wanted?
Yes, what I wanted to do was really to prevent people talking about, as with this situation, people talking about something that the rest of the board isn't aware of.
Yeah, and I agree. Okay, so, Brenda.
Can I ask kind of a wrap-up question about the annual report?
Sure.
How about I email it to everybody? I can do that today.
I actually thought it had gone to her, so, sorry.
No.
No, it was just you. So how about I email it to everybody, and we have further discussion at the next meeting with the lens of what are kind of the priorities where you'd want to hear more information or you'd want to get comparative data.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, Robbie and I can look and see if we can find the 2019 report and be ready to draw some comparison.
And that's,
Sounds great.
okay, let me go back to the cover letter. It's amazing, I remembered that. I thought that a cover letter on your letterhead, signed by me, maybe the whole board, for that matter, but to the city council, carbon or a copy to the director, or your department director, and a description in that cover letter of what is, not so much what we're proposing, but what is, what's been done, that sort of thing. We'll save what should be done, or maybe you can make reference to it, but the main emphasis will be what is, what's happened, and we'll save what should be done to the resolution that will be forming later in the year. And in that cover letter, I just talk about things like, these are the things that I jotted down. These are just off the top of my head, basically. The fact that we have a low representation of Hispanics, ethnicity seems should be reported, I think, and you said something about that, Brandy, last time that you're moving that direction. Electrification and how that affects the population, and other items that we think might be important. I can highlight some of the things, like I think I could translate some of the stuff that we've been talking about, the additional need for resources not so much as a proposal, but the fact that the counseling staff, the resource staff is overloaded right now. People have told me that the front desk is overloaded right now. And again, that's just kind of a reflection of what's going on right now. All right, so that, I could just attach that as part of the annual report, and we could talk about all of that stuff next time.
That- Go ahead.
What is the percentage of 55 plus in our community?
We can get that very easily,
That would be nice to have.
It is
I
on
have
mine.
I
We
have
got
that.
that on the agenda here in a little bit.
It's about,
Oh, okay.
It's in.
that's a lot.
Yeah,
And 65 and higher is 16%, roughly. So you add in 65 and 55, that adds in another 15%.
yeah.
So
Always
it's
start
also,
with 55 if you're gonna work with the council, right?
okay, Marcia?
Cliff notes are in the manager's report let me see, on the first page, number 2.
Number 2, yeah.
I just wanted to stick my oar in the sense that you said resolution later in the year. If your resolution needs to be funded in 2024,
Yes.
get it in by May.
Yeah, by May. Oh, I was thinking August.
No,
yeah.
they're done
Yeah.
in August. They
Okay.
start presenting it to council in August.
Okay.
So I was just gonna say the same thing. If you're asking for something to be funded, Ronnie will need to know that information in May, because May is the month where he does the budget requests. And sometime, and we don't have the official dates yet, but usually by the end of May, the system is shut down and he won't be able to ask for anything else until
Okay.
25.
Somehow I kept getting the idea that it was August, that was kind of the deadline.
So-
Okay, well, that's good.
Yeah, let me do just a quick summary real quick. May is the time that staff can make requests. At the end of May, that is shut down. In June, staff is invited to a meeting with the city manager and the finance director, and we're able to explain why we have requested things and why they're important to our operations. Then the city manager and finance staff take all of those meetings and all those requests and do their magic with it to a point where in August, usually it's by the end of August, Harold has to present a budget to city council. So if we're asking for anything, we need to be talking about that in April so that we have the time to make the requests in May.
Okay, you've said all that before, and somehow I got the idea it was August, but.
That's
Okay,
when we
I'm
start
glad-
seeing
Yeah.
it, so it's easy to believe that.
Yeah.
But it's too stinking, I mean, the council can make little tweaks,
Yeah.
but it really is just little tweaks, we have no authority.
That's, like you said last time, it's still well baked by that time. Okay, I'm glad you clarified that, thank you. Well, we've got a busy next meeting and the meeting after that.
Well, this is the March meeting, so we have the April meeting.
Yeah, we got 2 meetings.
Yeah, and so they can make requests in May, and a resolution from the board can reinforce and add weight to those, budgetary weight and priority weight to those, to their requests. And
Okay.
don't make it look like the fix is in, pick 1 or 2 innovative things to put in the resolution, but,
Okay.
yeah. So May, because they can,
Okay.
that's when they're doing the
Well, I just-
sifting and.
I just moved everything up in my mind by 2 months.
Good.
Okay.
3 months.
3 months. All right, I don't know if we need a motion for this, but I think, is everybody okay with the plan? I'll draft the letter, I'll send it out to everybody in advance, so you have a chance to look at it. You'll get the annual report in advance, and we'll talk about that and how we want it to look next time. And then if everybody's okay with it, we can submit it, shortly thereafter.
Can I just ask Marcia a question? Does council like the information in the normal written letter type form, or do you like the resolution type of format?
Well, there's a couple of things. I mean, you've got a system that you
Yeah.
put line item requests in. And that's, council can't change that, council doesn't even know about it really.
No, I'm talking about Dave's letter.
Oh, okay.
With, you know, we had talked about doing one with whereases and all that. Is that important to council?
Well, there is a difference between, you know, you're gonna give an annual report presentation. That should have, you know, your 6-page document more or less, and the highlights of it should be in PowerPoint and presented to the council. So that's one thing. A resolution that says, you know, we have the goal of increasing our participation from marginalized communities by 20%, and, you know, and whereas these are our problems, you know, we have mobility problems, we have transit problems, we have contact problems, you know, all of those things, participation on the board. And therefore, we need extra facilities for these purposes. That has more weight to the council because it's a formal goal that they have to vote on, than just a line item request does.
So we would be proposing a resolution?
Yes,
Okay.
that's, so yeah, used in this.
Which is the highlights of
Yeah.
the,
Right, not the highlights, but the rationale for the one or two biggest
Yeah,
requests.
see, I was going down a little different track. I was thinking we'd have a resolution approved by this group and given to the city council. You're saying, okay, well, we can still approve it.
Yeah, this
Given to
board
them.
approves the resolution,
Okay,
sends it
gotcha.
to the,
Okay, I'll see.
and to make that a resolution, that becomes
their
council
action.
policy.
Okay, gotcha.
Or
Okay.
that becomes, when the council does approves a resolution, it becomes city policy.
Okay,
So, you know, the council, in 2018 approved a resolution that we would have 100% renewable electricity, renewably sourced
What if
electricity.
they don't
by
like it?
2030. Then they'll vote no. That's democracy.
But you've still gotten your message out.
Yes,
do it again next year.
or see what they didn't like about it, and, you know, because they'll tell you what they don't like about it when they vote no.
Okay.
And yeah, it goes two ways, right? That's the feedback from council that now you guys are doing more than we can fund, or we're not sure that this is the right direction, or, you know, so, yeah, you can go in circles that way.
Yeah, it's a start.
Yeah.
Oh, cool, okay, that's been very helpful. I had to modify my thinking. Okay, so everybody okay with that? And we'll pick up the discussion next time on the annual report. But like I said, I do have some suggestions, and if you have any, when she gets the annual report out to everybody, if you have comments, make sure you get them to Randy. Or to me, or to Ronnie, and I get some feedback.
What,
Yes?
would it be better that we CC everybody?
No,
Okay.
No, that's a no-no.
yeah. You cannot conduct business through the email, so it's
Right.
best if
Right,
your
Yeah.
comments go back to Ronnie and
Gotcha.
Brandy, and then they can redistribute to everyone else.
that's right.
Okay, are we done with that? Okay.
We're not done with Marty's report, I don't think.
What's that?
We're not done with Marty's report.
No.
We're gonna jump back into
We're
it.
done with the, yeah, we're done with the animal report. Okay, new business.
Hey, we gotta finish, no, just like,
Which?
We're gonna come back.
No,
No,
We're
that's
gonna-
on, that's under board goals.
Yeah,
and
we're
That's
gonna
under
come back to it.
demographic
Yeah.
report.
Oh, okay.
gosh, I don't have the agenda in front of me yet.
Oh.
Just got it.
We're good.
Sorry.
I lost it.
yes, you do.
There we go. There it is, found it.
All right, now we'll get through this. All right, well, moving on to board goals and agenda for 2023, we decided we're gonna talk about the demographic report, the rest of Ronnie's report first.
So, some of this information is in my report, but I just did a one-pager for a little bit more information. So, we were talking about the demographics in our community, 55 and older population. So I pulled up some information on the Census Bureau website, and just information from our other local resources, which was around Longmont Times Call, who did some reports on the rate in which we were growing. So I was able to steal some of their information as well for this purpose. So identifying our 55 and older population, 21%, 21% of them in our community are 60 years of age and older. 20.1% are between the age ranges of 45 to 59, and 16.2% are 65 years and older. And just, on the same topic of conversation, we were talking about what the breakdown is for race and origin within our community as well. So I pulled that information up as well. So 68.3% white, 23.5% are Hispanic or Latino, 1.2% are black, and 3.3% are Asian. Okay. So the reason why I put it on the one pager as well is because last week I received CASO data from Boulder County, and it just shows the rate in which these the 55 and older population are aging within our community. So I just kind of highlighted a couple areas, identifying 2022, showing where we're at for our 60 and older, 60 to 79 age range, and 80 plus. So the information that they provided is 60 and older are 75,465 within Boulder County. 60 to 79, 64,354 individuals, and then 80 years of age and older, 11,000 in Boulder County. And so I just thought this would be good for us to take a look at, as it shows again the trends that we're heading at, and they went all the way up to 2049 for those three age demographics within the Boulder County area.
Based on what population, 140,000?
For
Boulder County?
For Boulder County, it didn't show. This is just, this is just the information that they provided. They didn't say out of how.
Well, I see the graph has up to 140,000, and there's just nothing really to compare to if we just have numbers.
We're not comparing. It's just showing. It's just showing trends. The trends in which we're aging within our community. Okay. So no comparisons. Just looking ahead in the future.
Gotcha.
Right.
Thank you, Ron.
Yep. No problem. So, and that is accurate information from 2022 data that Boulder County pulled. And, just on the same topic of conversation, the reason why we pull all of this is just how do we better reach our Hispanic community to get them engaged in our programs. And I just, on the very bottom, identified a couple key highlights that we have here with the Senior Center control. We're offering 54 programs in Spanish, okay, providing additional bi-weekly drop-in activities, and worth noting our dance group completed 24 performances within the past year, and our senior group completed 18 performances in the past year. Again, just identifying and highlighting what we are providing to our Hispanic community members. From the support side, support was given to 47 different caregivers, 18 persons in grief and loss support, and 19 Latino customers in Spanish-speaking support groups as well. So, just for the sake of this the conversation that we had last time, I thought this is good information to bring back to the board, just to share. Again, what our demographics are, what we're projecting in the future, and what we're currently doing to support our Hispanic community in the movement.
Yes, Jean.
I know it's difficult because COVID skewed statistics, but overall, are we doing a better job of reaching out to our Hispanic community? Are we getting better responses now in the senior center than we had before? Or let's compared to 2019 anyway.
I can speak anecdotally from the service side of things. In 2019, we had 2 resource specialists, one of whom is bilingual Spanish-English, one of whom is English-speaking, and our Spanish-speaking resource specialist primarily served Spanish speakers because there was such a high volume of need. We were able to add 2 more resource specialists during the pandemic, one specifically at the LHA properties who was bilingual and served about 10% of her caseload Spanish speakers, but also another full-time resource specialist here at the senior center whose caseload is at least half Spanish speaking at all times, and it can kind of fluctuate between half and 75%. So we have increased our capacity on the resource side of things to serve Spanish speakers pretty dramatically. And I will say Veronica's caseload continues to be primarily Spanish speakers. She does serve English speaking folks as well, but there's just a high need there.
Ruth, I'm sorry, Ruth?
Do we know if the Hispanic population is increasing percent-wise versus the non-Hispanic population?
That one I would not be able to pull until we get the 2022 census data. And that just allows us to compare 2021 to 2022, but 2022 is not out. Yeah.
Marcia?
Yeah, Brandy, for data gathering and utilization of mental health services, the population as a whole, not just the Hispanic population, is, in terms of access to medical care in general, is going to fall into 3 categories. You've got the 65 and olders who universally have Medicare and maybe something else. You have a certain percentage of them that have Medicare and Medicaid, and then the below 65 might have Medicaid, might have private insurance, might be uninsured, and their access needs are going to be radically different. So it would be really interesting to collect their insurance status when those services are given, if they don't mind revealing it.
When people tell us if they have insurance, we do track that, but we don't require everyone to provide that information, just like we don't require them to provide their gender identity or their racial
Sure.
ethnicity. We only require that when there's an application that actually requires that, and we have to ask.
Mm-hmm.
But people tell us voluntarily, so we do
Yeah.
have some data on that.
Yeah, I'd be interested in knowing how many refuse, actually.
Well,
It's
yeah, people are
People-
private
Private,
about their,
yeah.
why are you asking for that?
Yeah.
I came here to get assistance with X, why are you asking me about Y and Z?
Right, and you're absolutely right, it would not make it be an off-putting thing, but at the same point, it bears on the funding of the service,
Yeah.
so.
Well, I will say insurance status does not bear on their ability to get service here because we don't charge any insurance for anything.
No, but what it does bear on is, and again, this facility is probably the most accessible, but some people have access to other sources of mental health aid and some people don't, and that could matter.
Sheila?
I would also like just for everybody to note the biggest increase in population on that graph is the over 80s. That's a far bigger increase than any of the other age groups.
244%.
Mm.
Is that over a decade? Or is that, anyway, I
Yeah.
read that in the area report.
So I'm sure that
44%.
the senior centre would have to
Yeah.
accommodate that
Yeah,
and be aware of it. It's,
I think that would be a point that I would highlight.
you know,
I have a
Yes.
clarification on the Spanish programs on number 3, provide support via the groups. Are we talking about, is that including the individuals that the resource specialists have on their load or?
No, this is just looking, that bullet point just looks at support groups.
Okay.
And the
okay.
caregiver support groups and grief and loss support groups are offered in English specifically, but we also have a Spanish-speaking support group that is a general aging kind of support group that has had 19 folks attend. I would say on the programming side of things, I have grown Spanish programming as much as my caseload will allow. And that's part of why we're trying to figure out hiring the 3/4 time bilingual Spanish coordinator, because as a monolingual English speaker who speaks un poco español, I cannot grow this the way it needs to be grown, and that's not really my job. It's one of those things that sort of fell into my job. But I'm not a full-time programmer, and we need a programmer who has more time to really devote to growing those programs.
And I think I've asked this before, but the majority of the Spanish-speaking are with the resource specialist for coming in for services for that, right? They might not, or might not.
Are you asking what percentage of people's time is spent in programs versus
Right.
services?
That-
That's really hard to parse
Is that
out.
right? Okay, I'm just curious. Because, I mean,
That's
I've,
really
a
hard to
few
parse
times
out.
that I have been here, I don't come here often, but when I do come, I notice that the Spanish-speaking are always here, see Veronica or one of the others that are here.
If you talk about capacity, so in the resource specialist capacity, half of our staff have been able to see Spanish speakers, right? Programming capacity, if you look at the Go, we have a 60-page catalog, 2 to 3 pages of that are programs in Spanish.
Right.
Very different capacity.
Okay,
Yeah.
just curious.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can nail this down. On the ethnicity data, I know you've been reluctant to collect that data. In fact, you said you didn't do it for a variety of reasons. We talked about this months ago. And I thought you said that you're going to considering collecting that data again. Right now, no? Did I miss?
I think you
I
misunderstood.
guess I did.
I don't know if VSI has the capacity to track that data
Not
for
sure.
programming. So that's the majority of people's usage of our building, right, is programming. So I don't know if there's even the ability to track that data there. For supportive services, we do have the ability, and we do gather it either when people offer it or when we have to ask for applications. But we have never made it our policy to ask folks those questions for every single person who walks in the door for supportive services.
Well, if we're going to make the case, I'm thinking if we're going to make the case that part of the services we need to expand are for Hispanics, and we know 25% of the population is, 24% of the population is Hispanic, and they probably have about the same kind of problems as the rest of us proportionately, how do we make the argument that they're underserved if we don't have any statistics? Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I don't know how you make the argument. I was about to say, I don't think it's a correct assumption that they have the same set of needs.
Well, I agree. I
Because
don't
there's
think they-
there's an income
Yeah.
disparity.
I agree, yes.
But, and several others, actually, disparities. But I did want to also point out, Brandy, because you made it sound so awful that there are a number of programs like pool playing and Zumba that are not very language dependent at all. Anybody can go into Zumba if they're from Dumpet, they can still take a Zumba class and know what to do. So it's really misleading just to count programs that are offered only in English. If you needed to evaluate that, and I'm not sure you do, you'd have to score the programs as language dependent as well.
Can I speak to that?
Yes.
We have actually talked about that before. How do we reach our Spanish-speaking customers and encourage them to go to trips, programs, drop-in groups that aren't so language dependent? And what we have found is that it really relies on outreach. That if you don't speak the language that is being spoken by the instructor in a class, you are very unlikely to go try that class out unless somebody does some outreach and talks to you and says, oh no, this teacher is really great and they'll work with you. And we need a Spanish-speaking programmer to do that outreach. We have utilized Monica at our front desk and Veronica on the resource team and now Melissa on the resource team to do some of that outreach, and they really just have a limited capacity for that in their jobs. So again, all things point back to a Spanish programmer.
That seems like a major need. It seems,
But getting back to your question,
Yes.
David, what was your question? How are you going to
I don't know.
talk to council
Yeah, I don't know.
about the needs
I could use some-
of the Latino
I could-
population when we don't have those statistics, I mean, that's what he's asking for help with, right?
But we have it
Yeah,
in the
exactly.
community.
Pardon me?
And correct me if you think I'm off base here, Jeff and Ronnie. I think it's very easy to look at this statistic that 23% of our county is Latino, and that I think is actually a slightly higher percentage in Longmont. And to say, we have 0% of our programming staff that is Spanish speaking.
Yeah, and those
That's a great
statistics,
statistic.
That's,
Yeah.
all of those statistics are Longmont specific,
Longmont.
at the very top.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
I think that's a very easy analysis to make, that we're,
I think I can put together a rationale based on generalities from different sources, overall trends that probably apply here, and punctuate it with specific examples like you just did, which would be fairly compelling, I think. We don't have the data, we can make the rationale. That makes sense.
Well, you do have some data.
Yeah, some data, yeah, got some. Well, in my opinion, that's a tough one, you know, but we can do it.
well, if we had the data, let me throw this out there.
Okay.
If VSI tracked programming wise, the ethnicity and race, and we could say 2% of the folks who come into the senior center for programs are Spanish speaking. That data is heavily skewed because we don't offer enough programming in Spanish that we would have more than the 2% coming in. So
Exactly.
I don't think that necessarily gets you the information that you want.
Yeah, I know.
It's a chicken and egg.
Yeah.
Well, put your thinking caps on and talk about it some more next time. But you could make arguments like, for example, you know, that the rate of depression runs around maybe 2–3% of the population. All right, and it's probably higher among Hispanics because they're probably a little bit lower income, have less education, and I'm just making some generalities here. And that would be correlated with depression, so you could make that kind of argument that the depression rates among Hispanics are probably higher than the overall rate within the city, something like that.
I think you could still make the argument that we have 0 Spanish-speaking counselors
Exactly.
in a population that's 24%
Yeah, right.
Latino.
That doesn't matter. I mean, the numbers don't matter in that case. You don't have any.
We know the need exists, we know the need is not met.
Right. Yeah, that's probably the best.
There you go.
Yeah, okay. Well, we could, yeah, okay. Oh, anything more on the annual report? I'm worn out. Okay, all right, next item. Okay, we'll continue with your report, Ronnie?
Yeah, that's fine, we can jump in.
Okay.
So I'm gonna bounce around a little bit, we're gonna jump to number 4. And the reason why is, we brought Amanda Berto in, and I just wanna introduce her to everybody. Amanda is our new recreation supervisor.
Hi, everyone.
Started with us last week, so just wanted to bring her in and introduce her and have her meet all of you.
Everybody,
Yep, okay.
Welcome.
excited.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And your name again?
My name is Amanda Alberto.
I'm sorry, last name?
Alberto, A-B-U-R-T-O,
Which center will you be supervising?
here.
Oh, here,
Yeah.
oh, here.
Yes.
Oh, duh, okay.
Yeah, I'm the new senior supervisor.
What was the first name?
Amanda?
Amanda's came in last week, and she's coming from Brighton. Lot of experience over there, and we were fortunate to steal her, bring her part of our team, and she jumped in last week and already hit the ground running. I mean, so she's been here for a short period of time, but already doing a great job getting to know our team, our staff, and our patrons as well. So
I have a background in BSI with RecTrack, so I was the main person in Brighton doing that, and then since then we have switched over to a different program system, so I do have background in RecTrack, and just overhearing that's not necessarily numbers that we could run with the demographics that you were asking earlier. And then programming experience, so I have quite a number of years of programming experience. applicants have been working in a municipality for the last 25 years in some sort of form. And then 7 years with the city of Brighton, and then previously with other cities in California.
So you come from the senior center in Brighton?
No, I do not come from this. I come from the recreation center.
Recreation center.
So I was responsible for their front desk and their facility operations, as well as their water park operations.
I was just born and raised in Brighton, that's why I just kind
Oh,
of.
nice. Okay. Yeah.
Been
So
gone for a while.
yeah, so I'm the rec center, not EVAC.
Good.
Nice to meet everybody.
Yeah.
If you have any questions, the door's open. I'm where everyone else's offices are. So I'm right next to Shar, if you guys know where Shar's office is.
Thank you. Char's next to your office.
Yes.
Right, thank you so much. It was nice meeting everybody.
Nice meeting you.
Welcome,
Yeah.
Amanda.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So yeah, just want to provide some staffing updates so everyone kind of has an idea where we're at, and I think it's worth celebrating that
That's
we're
great.
collectively and slowly bringing our pieces together, and it's taken some time, and we're getting there. So you just met Amanda. We also just got confirmation today that we're moving forward with Maria Reyna, who will be our new evening custodian, and she'll be joining us hopefully in the next few weeks. So she just cleared everything. That's a lot to celebrate right there.
Excuse me, her name again?
Maria Reyna,
How do you spell her last name?
Reyna. So we got confirmation that Maria will be on board and joining us here shortly. We also just received, and was this week or last week? We just got confirmation that we are moving forward with our LHA resource specialist, Valerie Almanzar Garcia. She'll be starting with us the 27th. Is it 27th of this month? Got it right. 27th of this month. And was that this week that she cleared everything? Yeah. Okay. All my weeks are really starting to blend. So again, all these key pieces are slowly coming together.
And we'll have two Veronica Garcias here then.
Well, we'll have two Garcias, but she's Valerie.
Oh, Valerie, I said
It
Veronica.
will certainly cause confusion.
So Valerie will be joining us towards the end of the
Oh,
month.
okay.
So we're still working on 2 additional positions. Our therapeutic recreation coordinator position, we are moving forward with interviews next week. So that's another key piece that'll be joining our team hopefully here in the short term future. And our 3-quarter recreation coordinator position, which Brandy was just speaking towards in our last discussion. So we're in the works of piecing that together, and so that we can get it posted and begin the hiring process for that. So just wanted to share that. Again, a lot has happened in a short period of time. These are key pieces, and we're just slowly assembling our team to where we can start operating in a way that's, where we can, our current team can start taking a little less off their load, and it can go to the correct spaces. So we just feel like we are, I don't want to feel like we're overwhelmed, but so we're not feeling like we're overwhelmed, right? So we're coming together there.
That's great.
Can I give
That's
kudos
wonderful.
to Ronnie here that he's helping as a new employee himself to hire and train all of these new employees.
Yeah.
It's a lot to take on in your first 2 months
Yeah,
in a job.
it does.
So
Thank you.
And he works late at night.
I appreciate that. No, that's right. So I'm gonna jump back to number 1. So I just want to cover that since we had Amanda here. So I do have a quick care update. So good news.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, the never-ending story.
Right? So I'm gonna just pass them this way and pass them that way. So I was able to connect with a representative from the Colorado Visiting Nurses Association, CVNA, to kind of get more information for the services they provide. And so I was able to ask the questions that we had collectively that through the board, and just so I can come back with specific information as to, again, will this, can they meet our needs? Are they offering the services that we are looking for? And so that's just, I asked her to send me a little handout, so that's just kind of a little flyer with some information from them specifically. So big key takeaways that to some of the questions we had. So some of the questions we had as a board were, You know, do they provide on-site care? Is it more educational care? What do they offer, right? And so the information provided me, it is basic foot care. Okay, they do check for blood pressure and they do check for injuries. So a question we had as a board was, okay, well, what do they do with that? Can they treat on site? So her response is they cannot treat on site. And the reason why is because they are RNs, so registered nurses, they're not doctors. So what they do though is for anybody they see, they collect their health information. So if they do recognize anything of concern, they connect the dots. They will reach out to their healthcare providers to say, hey, just saw a patient XYZ, and this is something that I notice an area of concern. You know, we would appreciate if you, as their healthcare provider, follow up with this person. So they don't provide on-site care because they're not doctors, but they connect those dots for anybody that they see. Another concern we had was, you know, what about diabetics? Do they turn them away? Her immediate response was, no, never. We treat diabetics as any other patient. She said that's actually who we want to see. We want to be able to provide that care to diabetics as well. So, you know, that was a big concern at our last conversation, and I think, you know, worth noting that again, that they treat anybody who signs up.
And the diabetics be the ones that don't know they have an injury.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what she was saying, that's the ones we want to see that we can support and help as well. So, you know, another thing, so if this is a direction we want to go, it's not something we can start up right away. So we're basically on a waiting list. But the good news with that is in our area, we're at the front of the list. There's nobody in front of us, so what she is currently doing, and she saw this as a good opportunity as well. She said, I've been looking for someone to connect the dots from Boulder County all the way up to Fort Lupton. She said, so this would be perfect. So what she's doing is putting it out there that she's looking for RNs and she's going to start conducting interviews. And so that's going to take time for her, right? And she said, so once she's able to find anybody, if this is something we wish to move forward with, then we can start having discussions on dates and availability. So it's based off of the nurse's availability. So of course we can say we want these dates, right? Because this is what works best for us. With there being a shortage of nurses, we have to be flexible to their availability because they're doing additional things outside of this service that they'd be providing as well. So she's gonna work to generate that staff, and then we can begin having a conversation of dates and times.
So in the interim, before they could get somebody here, they would call that number.
Right, and she could connect the dots to current locations. Of course, there'd be
so they don't go to people's, it says visiting nurse association, they don't go to people's homes?
No.
Okay.
No, but she can connect the dots to where they're currently providing care near our direct area. Again, she said all the way up to Fort Lupton and as close as Boulder, right? So, yes.
Will we have scholarships for the $55 fee like we do for some other rec programs?
That's worth a discussion. You know, this is being in the infancy stages of the planning.
So many cannot afford.
Right.
Budget line item.
Right. Right. Yes.
Because at the moment, this isn't available to our community, could we get information about the UC Health Clinic and what their charges are and what their days are?
Right. Real quick, sorry, I passed all of them out, didn't save myself one. So could we look at that and be able to promote that in the meantime? Absolutely, right?
Yeah.
But as a comparison for, you know, what they offer versus what they offer, I asked her, you know, is the cost comparable? And she said it's right in that same range. She said some go over, some go under. There's not very many options right now. She said outside of them, she said there's maybe 2 of them, and they're private practices. So.
Well, I know that UC Health has one, but I don't know what their charges are, and I'm just thinking if somebody is in need, they're local, and I think they do it through their outpatient clinic, which is why they weren't willing to come here, because they have their own clinic.
I can look into finding that information and see if we can.
They also have charity dollars. I
They
don't
have
know how it would apply to this application, but they do.
Yeah.
I mean, they write things off, but maybe that's just the ER and hospitalizations, I don't know.
I could look into that.
And
Come
maybe I should direct this to Brandy. How does this list of services compare with what we used to offer?
I don't know myself.
Okay.
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Yes, I
It's
know it's been a
pre-pandemic,
long
yeah.
time.
It was before, Longmont, it was provided by the nurses at Longmont United, and they used to come here once a week
Yeah.
and offer services, but I don't know what whether there were charges or not. But when they got bought out, they were no longer wanting to do that. And UC Health wasn't willing to do that because they have their own clinic. But I was thinking in the interim, just something local that we would be able to tell them about would be helpful.
We've been pointing people to their doctors,
Uh-huh.
because sometimes they really need specialty care, and
Yeah.
their doctors are kind of routing them to, could you just get a pedicure, or do you need
Yeah,
treatment?
yeah, the UC Health Clinic is specifically for diabetic foot care.
So what I like about them as well is they partner with Kaiser, and depending on the plan that the individual has, Kaiser would cover a set amount of visits each year. And she said it's anywhere between 4 to 6, which she said that is the average they see somebody annually or throughout the year anyway. So if not, then they would be charged a $55 fee for their visit. And they handle all scheduling, they handle all billing, we do nothing, we just provide the location for them to provide the service. So, we would not have to create an RFP for that, it's just something that we can offer. Through our
Do you have that
services.
location?
We have, locations identified,
Okay.
but depending on when we can get it up and running is, then we'll look at where we can put it. If it is somewhere where we have openings here, but again, based off their availability, right, the nurses, then we can look at our schedule here. Obviously, plan A would be here in our location. If not, our Lashley location where we have plenty of space available as well would be another option.
And we'll have to,
Why did this not have to go through an RFP process? Because I thought that was one of the holdups over the past few years.
And help me if I'm
I'm
wrong.
trying to remember
So-
how to respond to that.
And I think this one is because we're not handling any of the money. I think that's really what it comes down to is we're not doing anything with it.
Or the
All we're just
liability?
providing- Right, we're just providing the location.
So you're a broker.
Yeah, right.
There is a history of them doing this in other communities. It doesn't really involve city money, so what we were trying to do prior, I think, was actually city contract with people to come in, which was a whole different thing.
Okay, makes sense, thank you.
This would still be a personal services contract? Or would it not be contractual at all?
It wouldn't be, right? Because
I think we're gonna want to put something in writing, and we'll work with legal because I believe Risk is gonna want them to name the city as additionally insured because they're providing the care in possibly one of our facilities.
okay, Ronnie, we're gonna have to enclose the front porch here pretty soon.
Yeah.
I
Right.
say north patio.
That would be good.
North patio, the whole business.
Right, just not in the winter.
Maybe I missed it, but how would you get the word out?
So again, if this is something
Yeah,
that
this is what it
we
is.
would like to move forward, once we have details, then we would communicate it out through the Go. Use the Go and, any additional resources we have. So currently, and I'll put this on the agenda for next board meeting as well,
Okay.
is the avenues in which we're looking at communicating, expanding our communication, through social media, and other routes as well.
Okay. All right.
And we can post this, right, like in the hosting rooms.
Oh, yeah,
People can.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good work.
Yeah,
Marcia.
so there is a new city webpage, I mean, new in the last 6 months, I guess, that allows people to sign up for email notifications. And so I don't know how that works, or, you know, how much earth moving you have to do to get a new sign-up list going, but for something like this that might be, you know, might be a little bit flexible in its scheduling, because sometimes it's Lashley and sometimes it's here, and you might even miss one because you couldn't get anybody. That'd be perfect, a mailing list, because then people could say, oh, all right, there's a foot care clinic this month and it's on this date at Lashley.
We have, that's what he was talking about earlier with David sending we have a bi-weekly email that people subscribe to.
Okay, of that same service.
It's highlighting any services or programs here that we wanna highlight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking this would be a specific alert.
Yes, sir.
So, I guess I'm concerned about needing this to be on the agenda again, based on what you all hear. If Ronnie gets called tomorrow and they say, we're good to go, I think it's a mistake if we put it off for a month. So, are you okay with?
I'd like a motion on that. If we're okay with it, so you're asking just to proceed with this?
Yeah, that way we can get it going.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion. Anybody?
I'd like to make.
Sheila?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay,
I said Sheila.
is there a second? What is your motion?
The motion is for the city staff to proceed with the foot care program without any further input from the board.
Okay. All right. And a second? All right. Any discussion?
Hooray.
I'm sorry?
Hooray.
Come on. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That was the loudest aye I have ever heard. All right, we're done with that. All right, thank you, you
Good
guys.
job, Ronnie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right. Okay, do you have anything further, Ron?
I don't know if we wanna go over just quick highlights, I know we got 15 minutes and then.
Yeah, we need to talk about boards a little bit too.
Okay, so, well, everybody has my written report, if you have any questions,
Yeah, go ahead.
we'll move on from there, if that's okay.
Yes, go ahead.
only that the films, the tickets for the films are being shown in Boulder, not Breckenridge.
I was gonna say, who's gonna go to Breckenridge?
Yes, 8 times.
Mistype under number
Yeah,
two.
that's funny.
Boulder or Longmont?
Yeah.
Are these
No,
the
these
ones-
tickets were just for Boulder.
Right. Breckenridge is great, but
They're providing, board as well, so the film and
Show
board.
'em here too.
So, okay, we didn't really talk about board goals and agenda calendar. We've kind of sideswiped it several times. So this year's goals, I'm just gonna throw it open to discussion. What do you think that the board goals should be this year for the balance of the year? We have upcoming agenda items, and we have ongoing goals, or at least we used to. But what are your thoughts as far as the goals for this year? Balance of the year?
I don't know about a specific goal unless it's, to me, our priority is to make the senior center as successful as possible.
As successful as possible?
Yes,
Okay.
even more successful than it currently is.
A board retreat?
Do we have a board retreat
I don't know.
to discuss some of these things as a group and have a work session on?
never done.
No?
Not
I
in the
think
last
some of the
5
boards in our
years.
city do. I think some of the city boards do.
Some do.
Yeah.
Yes, some do, yeah. In fact, the city's having a retreat this week, aren't they?
Gosh, is it
Next week,
already?
next
Next week, yeah.
Oh, is it next week?
Yeah, it's the 11th and 12th, I think. Thursday.
It's a good way
Friday and
to
Saturday.
set things in motion and get staff support and plan in advance for that question.
Do these retreats have to be recorded?
They have to be posted and open to the public.
Whether Longmont Public Media would choose to record that, that would probably be up to them, but I would assume that they would do that.
And somebody, hopefully not a participant, board member, should still take minutes.
Yeah.
There has to, you know, but again, minutes are fairly minimal, right? They can be, we discussed this, and usually you don't actually, you gather consensus, you don't make motions in those meetings.
Dave, I'm wondering if I could make a motion that, because of time primarily, that we all think about and come up with one goal
Good
and
idea.
present it next meeting, because I personally need a little time to think about it.
Okay, I think that's a good motion. You wanna put that, that's the form of a motion?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second to that motion? Second, Sheila? Any further discussion on that motion? All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Well, that's a good idea, Janine. That's a good way to do it. Let me throw something out though, even though you've made a motion already. One of the things we talked about earlier this week, last week, I guess. In the long term, with the trends, the demographic trends that you've shown us, you can't handle that here. You can't handle it with the staff you've got. So the long term is we're looking at a significant expansion of whatever all of the things that you do. And I don't know what the time frame is, but we're looking at, and I'll probably be long gone by that time, but we're looking, you know, we need to look in the long term, like 2030, 2040, 2050, those kinds of things, given the demographic trends. And, you know, we can't do anything just right now except plant the seed, it seems to me. Maybe we go so far as to ask council for a survey or something. I don't know, I'm just blathering right now. But the idea is we need to plan long term. Marcia?
So you're not blathering. Partly it's under consideration. So there's, if the new expanded recreation center is approved, there will be resource rooms that will be available to senior services. Obviously, there's not an exact plan yet, but that's one of the values that's, I think it's even on the survey, for that area. So there is Lashley here and then down there.
Yeah.
So that would be, if it passes, you know, a 2 to 3 year time horizon expansion, which is not bad. And the other thing that's happening is that the city has kind of waked up and realized that we have meeting space resources that are underutilized because nobody's programming them, right? Mm-hmm. So like out at Isaac Walton, there's a meeting room that's hardly ever used. Mm. So can you confirm that, Jeff?
I will confirm that. I don't know that that's how I would describe it, but it is available, yes.
Yeah. So, right, you mean that you're not sure that the inventory idea is official yet?
I don't know anything about that, quite frankly. But, you know, Recreation does oversee Isaac. There are things there underutilized, probably a little, especially since COVID hit. But
yeah.
Some evening and weekend time certainly would be available.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Okay, good. That was a good motion, Janine. I didn't know quite how I was going to handle that, so it's good. Yes, ma'am.
looking at the clock, it looks like we're not going to get through the whole of the agenda. Could I
Well,
su-
actually, okay, I'm sorry, what were you gonna say?
that we won't get through the whole agenda. I would suggest, with people's approval, that the reports on the various area agency on aging, the Friends report, and so on, that they be written by the people who attended those meetings and then submitted by email to everybody. Is that doable?
You can send it to the chair or to Ronnie,
Okay.
and then he can redistribute it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, send it to me.
Right.
Okay, that's a good idea. Although I wanna say something about my report.
Well, and also, I need,
We need to read your business.
Sorry?
I am the liaison with Friends,
Yes,
and I need a backup.
all right, who wants to be a backup?
I want to volunteer to.
Who wants to be a
I'll
backup?
do that.
Okay.
What does that entail? Going to the?
It just entails going to the meetings, giving
could just share.
a brief overview of what we discussed at these meetings. And, yes, it's not onerous.
It's a shuttle function.
Yes.
You still need to get through a number of.
Okay, so, did you get that, Ruth? Beth will be the backup? Okay.
You're welcome.
I wanted to mention one thing, and I normally would let it go, but I think it's kind of important. On the sustainability, at the last meeting, they came up with something that's really good. And, did you sit in on that?
I missed that one.
Okay. Zach, what's his last name? Zach Lance? Yeah, he's the supervisor of that new sustainable unit that reports to Lisa Noblock. She's quite good, very good in my opinion. Anyway, they are in the process of forming an overlay map that's based on a lot of stuff. I guess it's GIS information from the county and census data and interviews and surveys, like walking around the city to see what the temperature is, you know, in different areas of town. So they have an idea of what the temperature is in various parts and where there's canopies, where there aren't, that kind of thing. Now, the reason I think that's really cool is because you can overlap, say, for example, the Hispanic population, those over 55 with those low income, for example, and see where it's really hot. And, you know, that might have some implications as far as outreach is concerned, that kind of thing. And so I volunteered you, I said that you and I would be happy to attend an orientation to that when we get it finished, which will be soon. So I think that'll be useful. That's my report for sustainable invitations. So jumped ahead on that, sorry. All right. Any other business?
If I could mention something, I know a number of people on the board have been interested in issues around solo aging, people who are aging without family or supports around them in the community, and what the impact of that is in the aging process. And I have a flyer I'm happy to share with anyone who's interested about a needs assessment that's happening in March in Boulder County on this issue. I don't know if this is something that might be a goal for the board. I will let you all decide that when you formulate your goals. I just know there's been interest from a number of folks over time.
If that could please be distributed.
I could email it to
Yes.
everyone if
Yes.
that's okay.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I missed the first part. What was the issue?
People who are aging solo without
solo.
supports
Okay.
through their aging process.
Okay.
No,
Good,
no
yeah.
children, no family, no.
Friends.
Yeah, send it out. Good.
Poor person.
No, that's right.
Did we-
They just go,
Okay.
you too.
Yeah.
Julie?
Me too.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
We do
No,
the
I'll be your friend
supervisor
whenever you need
report and
one.
the city council liaison.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
The regular business, have we done that?
Yeah, I think so.
We did the supervisor's
Super.
report.
But we
Yeah,
did
you
not
gave your
do
report already,
Marcia.
right?
We did not do
So we
Marcia's.
didn't-
Yeah.
Oh, we didn't do Marcia's, I'm sorry.
Right, and I'm gonna give most of the time to Art, because what happened was that Art and Don Quintana and her assistant Michelle Gomez all met on the subject of getting more diversity on our city boards, starting with this one. Art has been actively networking about that. And then we also discussed some other things to do to make the applications more accessible. Having bilingual applications on paper distributed around the city and start accepting those again. The clerk's office is willing to do it. And we came up with some other innovative ideas on public engagement training to be offered, and the idea of going to, through the E4All, which is officially E por Todos. I can't switch into a Spanish accent very fast. You know, that they are going to we're gonna try to get them, if they can find the time, to disseminate information and on the public engagement training, which would be a two-way benefit for them. So, and then let's have Art comment on whatever else
Well,
is coming up.
I think the big thing on that is that, after talking to Don, we have the same issue apparently on some other boards where we do not have diversity. And one of the things that was discussed is the possibility of a video, with myself and somebody who speaks a little better Spanish than I do. And that way we have it in Spanish and English. And it's gonna be to encourage people to get that diversity there, and hopefully other people see it, and they reach out to people to try to get them on the boards. I think one of the other things we talked about is maybe the add-on to the utility bills on boards and needs, but that one's gonna be a difficult one because of the different times, right?
Well, I think so,
Different board times.
Right, I think they know in advance when the window's gonna open. The difficulty with that was space,
Right.
you know, so I think that what they settled on is a little tiny box on the city line that just says, remember, you can apply for boards and commissions, here's a website, you know. So that was a good thing. You know, we actually came up, Dawn recorded it, not me, so I'm not sure I can accurately list it, but we discussed which boards are most obvious to target, and so, you know, you wouldn't target the airport advisory board, right? Because, you know, the population of people that are qualified for that board is very tiny. But something like Parks and Recreation, where, you know, everybody can participate as a good informant just based on what their activities are, that would be a good board to target.
And
Children
then we
and
talked about
families.
Facebook also.
Yeah.
Put something on Facebook. The other thing is, of course, and we brought this up at the last meeting, having a booth at the Cinco de Mayo, and you know, have applications on board. I mean, the hard copy of applications, talk to people about it. Actually having some applications right here at the center, if anybody is interested, because there's some people that, you know, don't have computers or don't have that, but hopefully might consider applying. It'd be easier. I mean, I thought about it, is that if we get the applications here, that give them a reason to come into the center, and kind of a ground thing like that. And I just think that I didn't even get a chance to look at Dawn's information that she sent us, but I thought it was a very productive meeting, and hopefully we can get the diversity that we need on some of these boards. So, you know, I think,
It's a wonderful meeting.
yeah, very, very productive.
Sounds good.
Thank you for doing
I don't know
that.
if there's anything else that I really
No,
want to say. There's a lot that we
I-
talked about.
Art
You know,
has-
for a little over an hour, and then we,
Yeah.
but there's
Sounds
a lot to
good.
talk about.
Right,
Very good.
I would like to acknowledge Art, who has really been, you know, working the network in terms of finding immediate potential volunteers. What Carmen advised us for boards in general was that it was gonna be a 3 or more year effort to really move the needle. But Art's moving the needle for this board right now, so.
Thank you.
And I couldn't go without Martha and Carmen's up there, so it's a group effort, it's
Yeah,
not one
but it's
individual.
been good.
But one of the things I wanna clarify, how many openings do we have? Two to one?
Two,
Two.
Okay, two,
9 members.
okay. I don't know why I thought one, but.
Well, because the backup, alternate, there we go.
Right, we did away with that.
Right, the alternate has been moved up, promoted to
Right.
a full board member, so we have an extra member since
Okay.
2 years ago.
All right, any other comment? Didn't make it this time either.
Close?
2 minutes left. All right,
Good job, David.
any further
No,
comments?
we skipped out. the whole
Okay,
section.
hearing no further comments.